Okay, so what we're going to start to look at now is we're going to start to think about our recruitment process. And what we're talking about with the recruitment process is getting people that, employees or people that we want to come and work with our business. But it doesn't always have to be limited to employees. A lot of the principles that we're going to cover here will also cover things like contractors, those freelancers, the short-term person I need, rather than always just thinking about, the person I need to hire or the person that works for me. Okay, it can be the person working with you. Some of these can also just come down to your general team and your day-to-day activities. So the first thing we need to do is we need to sort of think about who. Okay, a lot of the time we're talking about what job it is that we want, but actually, or job field, but rather than always thinking about that, what we actually probably need to really think about first is, well, what is the sort of person that I want? Okay, so what we want to do in the next short little bit is start thinking about how do we define the person. And what we're really talking about there is what's called a person specification. Okay, which is the first thing we need to start to develop when we're starting to think about who we want or what we're going to look for. And the person specification, that starts to identify the very specific personal attributes required to perform the task or the job. Okay, so we're talking about what sort of person needs to be doing that job. Okay, it's setting the desirable criteria for applicants before the interview process. And what we're really talking about there is personal attributes such as, does it need to be an ambitious person? Do they need to be bright? Do they need to be confident? Do they need to be outgoing? Okay, so what sort of personality is going to be suited to the job? If they're a person that is always going to spend all their time alone, then maybe that's not such a big deal. But if they're a person that's going to be the front of house, dealing with our customers every day, representing our business, we might need a certain type of person to do that. When I worked in banking, they often wanted someone a little bit serious and dependable type person. When I worked in nightclubs and bars, it was someone more energetic and outgoing, happy to engage with people. At the same time, if you're going to be a teacher or a trainer dealing with students and you can't talk to people, well, obviously that's going to create a bit of a disconnect. So that's what we're talking about with the attributes. We then also start to think about, well, what sort of presentation does this person need to have? In other words, how do we need them to appear? Do we need a sort of a sharp dresser? Do we need a specific type of grooming? Do we have any policies on jewelry and tattoos and those sort of things? What is that? Once again, we do need to think about that and understand that in 21st century society, people have these things and what our need is if we're saying they can or can't have them or how we want that to appear. We start to think about what skills does that person need to have, okay? So the essential skills. So do we need a supervisor, or do they need to have managerial or administration skills? And then lastly, we start to talk about, so what qualifications do we expect from that person? Okay, do they need to have certificates, diplomas, degrees, etc.? Okay, so that is, what are the attributes? In other words, what sort of personality and what nature of the person we want? We start to think about presentation. And once again, think about what's relevant and necessary. Don't just make it up. Think about what you're doing. If they're working on a farm, they don't have to be neatly, sharply dressed in a suit. That wouldn't make sense. We talk about skills that we want them to have. And then lastly, we start to think about, well, what are the qualifications? All right, so that's going to put us pretty much on the initial thought. So we want to start to map these out. Now, further to that, then we start to look at the next layer of skills or attributes we want them to have. What experience do we want from that person? Okay, do we require an experienced person? Can it be the new person? Could it be someone just getting started? Do we need particular industries that they come from? And that's the past and present. Okay, how long ago can they have that experience? Okay, if they've been out of that industry for a long time, okay, is that important? Okay, what does that mean for us? Okay, we also need to think about, well, what's the attitude towards, working with a team? Do we need a team player? Do we need someone who's good at self-work? Do we want someone who really works well with a team? What's the nature of the sort of job they're going to be doing and what sort of person do I then need? Also looking at their problem-solving skills. Are they going to be a problem solver for us? Okay, are they the sort of person that we're going to have going out making decisions for our company? Okay, if they're a manager or something like that, we want them to be able to think quickly on their feet, come up with good solutions, come up with ideas to solve problems. If they're a process person that is normally doing a fairly routine task over and over again, Are those problem-solving skills as required? We always want good thinkers, okay? There's no excuse for saying, well, they don't need any of that skill. We always need that skill because we want good quality employees or good quality co-workers or collaborators who are going to be able to help us and come up with the continuous improvement. So don't just discount it, but not everyone has to solve all the world's problems, okay? So there's a bit of a balance there for you to think about. And also starting to think about what's their technology skill. Okay, so what's their technology skills? Do they know how to use certain hardware around the office? You know, do they understand how certain machines, etc. work? Same. What about the soft skills? Do they understand how the apps work, computer programs, whatever it happens to be, okay? So we think about all the different technology layers and how they're going to work with that. So this is really the first part of thinking about your business, and that is to identify the person specification that you would use to start up your recruitment process or your thoughts to go out and get someone to come join your team. What is the balance? Knowing that you've got an opportunity, what's the balance they need? All right, do that and you should be great.